This week, the Iranian President Mahmoud Ahmadinejad was in New York. He was given a platform at the United Nations and also at Columbia University. And today, he made more inflammatory remarks on his return to Tehran. Joining us now is the exiled prince of Iran, Reza Pahlavi. The Iranian president said today that the United States was to blame for 9/11 and also that 9/11 was overblown in many respects, in his opinion, like the Holocaust. What's your reaction?
You know, apart from being appalled, it's a sad reflection of the fact that this is someone who is simply out of touch of the reality of our days. It's a pre-modern way of behavior and thinking. What else could one say? But to be totally shocked by these kind of statements, whether it's about the Holocaust or 9/11 or so many other issues, it is really extremely shocking.
He was given these platforms this week at the United Nations and specifically Columbia University, and there was a lot of controversy surrounding his visit. What was the reaction in Iran?
I think it's important for a lot of people on the outside to realize that I don't think that his comments are really targeted for purposes of influencing Iranians at home. I think this is more to inflame even more radical Islamists in the Muslim world, because that's really what he's counting on at the end of the day.
So he's trying to stir the pot, if you will, and in some respects he may have used the United States to that end.
Whatever would work in their strategy, but I think the world is beginning to realize even more how detached this regime and its representatives are from the true aspiration of an Iranian nation. And I'm glad to see that in most remarks that distinction is becoming more and more obvious as the days goes by.
One of the central issues this week was Iran's nuclear program. The Iranian president claimed once again this week that it is just for peaceful purposes, it's only for energy. Do you accept that explanation, or do you believe it is in fact for a nuclear weapon?
Well, I think the inalienable right of the Iranian people has been violated as a result of the behavior of a regime that has been from the very beginning non-transparent, has been from the very beginning in violation of a variety of international norms and regulations, has in fact brought upon the kind of suspicion and mistrust which otherwise would not have been a problem. And this is another consequence of this regime hurting the main interest of our nation.
So do you think that the program is for a weapon?
Well, if the transparency from the very beginning was there, I don't think the world would have any doubt. But the problem is that how could you possibly trust this regime that talks about Armageddon in some ways and has had leaders throughout the last few years, one way or the other, insinuating the fact that they might even use such kind of weaponry. The intent to me is clear that the regime would need this nuclear arsenal in order to protect itself even furthermore in terms of guaranteeing some kind of a, how could I say, a sort of deterrence in their view to institutionalize themselves in the region. That's why they need it.
Make themselves more powerful. On this program, we've spoken to a number of former American hostages who were held for 444 days back in 1979. And some of them do believe that the Iranian president, Mahmoud Ahmadinejad, was in fact one of the student captors. What is your belief?
Well, I don't have the facts one way or the other that would prove that. But again, one should not be surprised that the kind of elements we're dealing with today in Iran are all results of a regime that is by nature a terrorist regime, that takes hostages, that wants to wipe out another country from the world map. Again, it is time for the focus to go on what is really the culprit here. And again, isolating Ahmadinejad in all this would be just focusing on the man as opposed to the whole system that produces these kind of attitudes and this kind of behaviors. Our problem fundamentally is with this regime. And I think the only way that the world and Iranians will benefit is for such kind of a regime to disappear, and hopefully we can replace it with a democratic system that would be transparent, that could be accountable, that would respect its citizens' rights and their human rights, and in that sense will benefit not only us as Iranians, but the whole world.
Mr. Pahlavi, the exiled prince of Iran, thank you for being our guest.
Thank you for having me.